win an election. It's clearly the game has changed, and thuggery is the way to go. Now, I don't believe in doing undemocratic things in the way that Republicans do, but getting rid of a requirement for a supermajority while using the absence of a filibuster to advocate for, or to rather not advocate for, I advocate for things. Y'all pass laws to enforce, to guarantee voting rights. Now you're gonna win an election, you chump. I don't like Republicans do these crazy, hard, draconian ground shifts in voting laws and things of that nature, betting and winning that they will win an election because of it. So like, even though I'm drastically limiting your rights, because I've done that and made you upset, I don't have to deal with you anymore. So I'm not worried about your wrath on this. Democrats, if you actually give us the rights and you actually guarantee them, you don't have to worry about Republicans mobilizing like they did against Obama, and we'll never let this happen again, and we're going to gerrymander like never before, et cetera, voter ID laws, and we're going to make sure we just cut every single demographic out as possible. Don't worry about it, because you already brought back preclearance, and you already gotten rid of voter ID laws, or whatever have you. Like, I don't know. It's the whole point is to make the process more democratic. And if the process is more democratic, that helps you win. So you don't have to worry about the day where Mitch McConnell gets the keys to the Death Star.
Welcome back to Relatively Conscious. My name is Antonious Brown.
Ervin Bryant.
Shout out to DJ for making our beat.
At DW Made That on social media.
Follow us on social media.
That's at Kinda Woke on Instagram and Twitter. Relatively Conscious everywhere else. Go ahead and like, follow, subscribe, share, retweet, comment, and let us know. Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, but we're gonna focus on Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, senator from Arizona. We've previously dubbed her an agent of chaos in her opposition to basically anything that the party tries to do. She's a Democrat, and she refuses to walk in step with the party. Kind of defeats the purpose of a party. But recently, she has pled her case on the Senate floor. We're going to talk about it. Do you think she's an agent of chaos? Do you think she's trash? Throw Kyrsten Sinema away? Or, that's just democracy?
Yeah, so I listened to our entire floor speech. It's about 19, 20 minutes. It's a lot of flowery language about democracy and how it's supposed to work, but it's good. I've watched way too many Joe Manchin interviews. He's got a tendency to do the Joe Biden thing where he says things and like, what did you say? And then you got to read it back a couple times. But they both are in opposition to getting rid of filibuster to try to pass voting rights, basically.
Yes.
Let's talk about the politics real quick before we get into the arguments. Like, what the politics lay of the land looks like. Joe Biden wants to pass voting rights legislation. The John Lewis voting rights bill, or the For the People Act, which is a bigger, more conglomerate bill that's kind of old from 2018 that kind of reworked. It's got a lot of goodies that people wanted, progressives wanted, hasn't really been hammered down to the nitty gritty of what it actually is going to be in there. There's some things thrown into there that's never going to happen, but it's just a big bag of everything they want about elections. And basically, neither of them going to pass unless we get rid of filibuster, because you can't pass voting rights legislation through reconciliation, basically. So you need 60 votes or get rid of the filibuster. Democrats only have 50 plus one of the vice president. So either they get 9 Republicans to vote with them, or they don't pass legislation at all, or they get rid of filibuster. But Sinema and Joe Manchin are both against getting rid of filibuster. The filibuster is the requirement for there to be 60 votes or 2/3 majority for anything to pass the Senate. So Sinema gave her reason for doing this. And I think the argumentation is sound, basically. Yeah, it's weird. The argumentation, I think, is sound. So here's our argumentation. One, the country is divided, like ridiculously divided.
Wow, hot take.
It's partisan, partisanship is taking hold, right? And she doesn't acknowledge the fact that Republicans are trying to subvert elections in the state houses, basically. But our argumentation is that by getting rid of filibuster, you haven't solved the actual issue. So the actual issue is division and people not listening to one another. But if you get rid of filibuster, then each party only needs to look within itself to decide legislation. There's no bipartisanship necessary. I can pass anything through the Senate without ever talking to the other side, as long as I win 50 votes. And so if you want to talk to yourself, you like to be pulled towards your polar ends, right? So if Democrats talk to themselves and argue with them on themselves, legislation is more likely to come out more left-leaning. That is true in just how we do things in the status quo. When Republicans talk among themselves, legislation comes out more right-leaning. And so if you don't require bipartisanship, you get really partisan legislation. That's just, I feel like a bad way to say that.
No, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. I hate to say partisan.
Or one-sided,
One-sided legislation, right? And so the filibuster, as James Madison said, as Thomas Jefferson said, is a tool to make sure that the Senate doesn't just pass things willy-nilly, that there's debate, that there's discussion, that there's deliberation made, basically, on the issues. And it requires you to go across the aisle to really pass something.
In order to get that super majority of 60.
Yes.
As opposed to a normal, regular, what do they call it? Regular majority?
Yes. A simple majority, as to say.
Simple, yes.
Yeah.
Simple majority.
And so if you get rid of filibuster, you've got our we've got partisanship rampant, but we got one cap on it. And this is her reasoning. You got one cap on it, it's the filibuster. That's only keeping us from going to partisan hell, basically.
Yes.
If you get rid of filibuster, now the Democrats can pass. She said, use these words exactly. Each party thinks they can pass the best legislation,
right,
if they get rid of filibuster. But we know that each party's best legislation, when it's one-sided, is not best for the country, right? So I guess what she's saying is, we think that as Democrats, we can pass voting rights. That's what's best for the country, and we don't have a filibuster.
Right.
But Republicans also could pass a bill that says abortion for nobody. Completely.
Yes, and they both think they're doing the best thing, but the opposite side thinks it's the worst thing.
Yeah.
And maybe if we got together and worked on it, it would work out. But we're not doing that, and getting rid of the filibuster won't help this problem that we're not getting together. And I have a very clear and simple debate argument for this.
Yeah. You want Joe Manchin's argument? Just want to do hers first.
Let's just deal with this one real quick. I mean, how similar is it?
His is a little more interesting.
One at a time. Yeah. In debate, there's a word uniqueness. Okay. Where basically, if you want to bring up an idea, a harm in this case, so say that the filibuster would cause a harm in polarization, it would exacerbate polarization. Okay, we have, and this is true every year, that the Senate, the House, is in its least productive year. We continually setting records for not doing anything and continually polarizing more and more. This is an upward trend. In the world where we have the filibuster exists, and this problem continues to not only exist but increase. Okay, she says polarization will increase in the world without the filibuster. Well, if it's increasing in the world with, and it's increasing in the world without, it's not unique. The harm that she's presented to getting rid of the filibuster doesn't matter. There's no material difference in the world with the filibuster, in the world without the filibuster. I might as well do it. If, of course, has the pros that its proponents say that it does.
Well, her argument is that the harms are different in the world without the filibuster, because partisanship increases, but then there are laws can be passed in that world that can be passed in the filibuster world. So without a filibuster, you get a law passed and it says abortions for nobody, no mask for nobody, no vaccine mandates for nobody. You get really bad laws passed like that. Let's get rid of Social Security altogether. Let's privatize the VA. These are laws that the Republicans have thought about and have tried to pass. Let's get rid of Obamacare, which is did not get passed because of John McCain, which is her seat that she's currently holding. Yes. And so her arguments in the world that you don't have a filibuster, these laws do get passed and the world is worse. Partisanship increases in both worlds, but at least in one world, you don't have these laws come into act.
We got to move on. Like I said, if it's they're the same as long as, and what they're the same both worlds because the partisanship increases. And she says that when we start passing laws, that's bad. I just disagree. I think that of course, I don't want Republicans to just be doing whatever is in Mitch McConnell's head on that day, or rather, he doesn't move on the fly like that. So whatever he's been Emperor Palpatine cooking up for decades, I don't know what he's got planned, but I'm kind of afraid of it, right? And I don't want him to just be able to do it whenever he wants to, whenever they have a majority. At the same time, though, I want them to do something. And I don't know. I'm in favor of doing something. How about that?
I guess the
crazy.
Her argument is that inaction is better than action. If action is going to be crazy, interrupting status quo.
Spoken like a career politician. Let's move on.
And so Joe Manchin's argument is that he believes Joe Manchin has been in the Senate for a long time, and like Joe Biden, they believe they can talk to Republicans and get them to reason and understand things.
They are not to be reasoned with.
Yeah,
that's my new catchphrase, 2022. Bryant 2022.
But he has some Republicans who come along who go along with them, like Kowski on his side. He's got Collins. Him and Romney agree every now and then on certain things, right? So he's like, I got 3. I can get some more and get them to come to my side. And basically, we can pass Joe Lewis's Voting Rights Act without the filibuster, because in the past, it has always passed without the filibuster, which is true. From 1964 up until 2000 or something, 2010 or something, until Obama became president, the Voting Rights Act pretty much passed flying colors. Nobody argued about it, basically. He also argues, Sinema argues, that this is a growing trend of us getting rid of guardrails and those having bad outcomes. So the earliest would be in 2013. They got rid of the guardrail that required there to be 60 votes to appoint judges, federal judges, right? They got rid of the guardrail because of Republican opposition under President Obama. And now, when Trump was president, Connell was just appointing judges like it was like Tuesday. And he had 100 at a time, basically. He would just read their names off and appointing judges left and right. There were so many vacancies because Republicans opposed appointing any judges under Obama until they got rid of 60 votes requirement. Sorry. Also under Obama, they got rid of the requirement for there to be 60 votes to elect a Supreme Court judge, because the Republicans were trying to stop that too. But now we see they got 2 appointments to the Supreme Court without any Democrat say whatsoever. Back in the day, even RBJ got 98 votes in the Senate, but then we got to the point where Obama became president, a black man, and all of a sudden you can't get 60 votes anymore to appoint a Supreme Court judge. So the argument is, every time we do the nuclear option and get rid of something, it always bites us in the behind when Republicans get in charge. They appointed hundreds of judges under Trump. They appoint 2 seats to the Supreme Court. These are issues that we have. And also, they think they can talk to them and get them to vote on voting rights legislation, because this is the exact line: if they're passing laws to subvert elections are cynical, and at some point Democrats will be in charge and they can use the same laws against you. That's interesting. Because in Texas, I don't see Democrats being in charge. I think Republicans do the same thing.
I'm gonna start off real easy, referring to my catchphrase, my campaign slogan: Republicans are not to be reasoned with. Ervin Bryant 2020. Okay, and here's the thing: it's almost like the truth is the truth, and I shout out Democrats for, at least in this situation, operating on the truth. Okay, because the difference is not an difference of whether or not Republicans are behaving this way or that way, or whether or not Democrats have responded. I have to agree, all those things are true. It's just I'm interpreting these responses differently. So if Republicans are continually being obstructionist, and throughout the past decade, shout out Obama's blackness for scaring them, I guess, or 20 years, daggum, 14. It's around 14.
Yeah.
For the past 14 years.
I'm not that old.
yeah. I'm like, wait, hold up. But for the past 14 years, being just ridiculously obstructionist to the point where supermajorities have to be step by step gotten rid of. That's the changing of the game. Like, Democrats have adapted and responded in these ways because it is necessary to get things done. Now, of course, he says, well, if we do that, then it's going to backfire. In the same way that, they're going to be in charge, win an election. It's clearly the game has changed, and thuggery is the way to go. Now, I don't believe in, doing undemocratic things in the way that Republicans do, but getting rid of a requirement for a supermajority while using the absence of a filibuster to advocate for, or to rather not advocate for, I advocate for things. Y'all pass laws to enforce, to guarantee voting rights. Now you're gonna win an election, you chump. I don't like Republicans do these crazy, hard, draconian ground shifts in voting laws and things of that nature, betting and winning that they will win an election because of it. So, like, even though I'm drastically limiting your rights, because I've done that and made you upset, I don't have to deal with you anymore. So I'm not worried about your wrath on this. Democrats, if you actually give us the rights and you actually guarantee them, you don't have to worry about Republicans mobilizing like they did against Obama and, he's black and we will never let this happen again, and we're going to gerrymander like never before, et cetera, voter ID laws, and we're going to make sure we just cut every single demographic out as possible. Don't worry about it, because you already didn't brought back preclearance, and you already gotten rid of voter ID laws or whatever have you. Like, I don't know. It's the whole point is to make the process more democratic. And if the process is more democratic, that helps you win. So you don't have to worry about the day where Mitch McConnell gets the keys to the Death Star.
Here's my counter argument. Let me go ahead and get debate mode. Yeah. Two arguments. One, Democrats can't win elections in certain states, and that's the issue. It's like you say win elections, but like their issue is that they lost Missouri. So now, what's his name? Josh Hawley is now in the center of Missouri because the woman who was running for that seat, who was in that seat for a long time, decided not to come out for abortion rights strong enough, and they fought her on that. And like the Democratic Party fought her for not coming out strong enough on abortion rights, so they made her go out harder on it. And Holly was like, they're killing the babies. She was always a do what you want, but I'm gonna not, I'm not gonna force you to. And now she's like, abortion rights for all. They're killing the babies out here in Missouri. We can't have that. And then she lost, basically. And so Manchin's argument, I think, is that one, Democrats can't win elections because the left, the new niggas, as you call them, are going to force the party left, and they keep losing elections that way. And if you can't win an election, then the Republicans are going to win these national elections, and it's going to make things worse. So, like, yeah, you would think that getting people the access to the vote would help them win. But whether you have access to the vote and you don't agree with what Democrats are saying, I'm going to still vote Republican. Like, if more Black people have access to the vote, but the Republican Party decides we're going to elect Bernie Sanders. That doesn't mean Bernie Sanders is going to win the national election.
No.
Yeah. And so if that happens, that's the issue he has there. Like, they can't win elections, going to keep doing stuff to cause them not to win elections on the politics side.
Watch out.
Let me get the other argument real quick. This guy's twofold. Okay. Yeah. That voting rights, they're not willing to give up the filibuster voting rights because Supreme Court won't allow the law to stand. Because Republicans are doing this is smart through the state legislators, because the Constitution gives state legislators the power to choose how to run elections. And so if you want to affect voting rights in elections, you got to win state houses. And it's not about the filibuster. And you're going about this a whole wrong way. Because if you was do a law that says you can't have voter ID laws, basically, I believe it's also true the Supreme Court throw that out and saying that state legislators decide what they want to do with elections. If you make a law saying that you can't have partisan actors deciding how do you want to decide what electors to decide. I believe it also the Supreme Court would say a constitutional originalist, like that the constitutionalists like Barrett and Kavanaugh would say that's against the Constitution. And so maybe Manchin is right that if you want to do this, it's not through filibuster, it's going through the state houses. And going back to the first argument, you continue to lose state house elections, i.e. Texas. We had a chance in 2020 to take back the state house, but we lost elections when people kept saying defund the police and other things like that, and they lost those elections. Or also, someone on the left will argue me that that's not when they lost elections. They lost them because Joe Biden was a non-expiring candidate. I think that's BS, but it's whatever. That's another argument from the day.
Here's the deal, Joe Manchin. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
Somebody got to move. Okay. Democrats shooting themselves in the foot, so to speak, when they come to the South, when they come to the Great Plains, and they don't know how to speak the language of the rural and the disenfranchised. That is not going to change. No amount of grandstanding, speech giving, haranguing the masses on your soapbox is going to change that Democratic attitude, and nobody knows why. A bunch of pundits and analysts have realized and targeted that as a problem, but nothing is done about it. It's cultural, it's political, it's part of its historical trend, and that's where we're at right now. What changes the party and the wing of the left wing and their attitude about those things historically, I don't know. And honestly, trends like that are kind of this huge arcing thing influenced by the climate, like literally, the environment, wars, economics, etc. You can't control that. Just is my point. Nothing that anyone in Washington is going to do is going to change that attitude. No singular person.
Yeah.
But you as a singular person, Joe, can pass the filibuster. And just like I believe with Kyrsten Sinema, pros and cons, it's not a perfect fix. But you will be able to do something as opposed to do nothing and wait for the Democratic Party to wise up and start winning state house seats. Come on. That's a joke. You got to be telling me jokes that the Texas Democrats are going to start. I mean,
they're going to do their job correctly.
Not this century.
Yeah.
They used to know how to do something. They don't know how to do anything anymore.
Yeah. What I come down on this is that I think getting rid of the filibuster is an imperfect solution, but it's the only solution we have. Because the real solution would be you have to win state house elections. The real solution would be to overhaul a DNC and really deal with this problem. The real solution would be, one of the problems that people who work in politics for the Democratic Party are a lot more left than the actual Democratic Party's coalition. And I don't know how you fix that, because you have to be weird to do what we do, talk about politics on a podcast. You got to be weird to want to understand what the laws are and want to work in politics. But those weird people in my travels are often way more left than those who go to vote on a Sunday and call it a day. And that is a problem for the Democratic Party for like going forward for years to come. The Republican Party has a different issue. Their voters are crazy, but the people who work in the party are not that crazy.
That is wild. How I never thought about how that's the inverse with the parties. Yeah. Like the Republican voter base. What do they call? What did you say? Coalition. That's the word. Knows everything about Jeffrey Epstein. knows all of the truths, and then an extra layer of untruths about the Obamas and the Clintons. Yeah. I mean, encyclopedic knowledge of occult history in Europe and how that's carried over in the US, and they're still doing those rituals today. And Republican representatives like Ted Cruz know nothing about that. He just goes to work every day and votes. That's it.
Like the Republican politicians, people who work in the party just want to get rid of welfare state and like peel back taxes. That's what they want to do. But their voters want to I don't know, put Obama's head on a stake and like parade it around Washington D.C. And they're like, what that guy say when we went to the truth turning point when he was like, I don't know about that, but
she was talking about God and mid-God. She's talking about the last days and the Antichrist. He said, I don't know about that, but we got to win back to campuses, college campuses.
And so but the Democratic Party is the opposite, where like people are like, we got to defund the police, and they're like, I don't know, man. Can Joe Biden just like be competent? That's all I want. Can you just be competent? And that's like what the real issue is. You can't fix that. I don't know how you fix that. But getting rid of filibuster, at least we have something on the table. At least John Lewis's bill would pass. And that's all we can hope for right now. Because I don't think Joe Manchin can find. If Joe Manchin can find non-Republicans to vote with him, all the power to him. Don't get rid of filibuster. Let's do it correctly. But I don't think there's non-Republicans who want to do that. Because they're going to lose besides Romney, who probably can't lose his job because he's, Romney in Utah, but they booed him. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But some of them, they're not willing to put their head on put their job on the line like that. They're not Joe Manchin, who's 70 plus years old and was like, if I get voted out, okay, I'm gonna go to retirement home. Most of them want to do politics for a long time, and they don't want to give up the Senate seat for principle, which is have George Washington roll on in his grave. Any last thoughts?
I have not changed my mind on Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema. And on this anniversary, we just passed up the anniversary on Martin Luther King Day, and of course 2 days before that, on Saturday, January 15th, was his actual birthday. Shout out Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Do it for King one time. You know what I'm saying? Not get rid of the filibuster, but I'm gonna say pass. So it's not necessarily a law, but get rid of the filibuster, change the rules, and let's just do it for King. Just he didn't like the filibuster. He wanted to see you roll the dice. Roll the dice one time for King.
Yes. All right. My son is Brown.
Ervin Bryant.
Peace.
Do it to him,